This podcast is made possible in part by Patreon support, and we've got 2 new patrons, Charlotte and Kirsten. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I truly appreciate it. You are putting up your hard-earned money as well as many other people so that I am not going broke here just paying for hosting and doing all this stuff. And hopefully eventually one day I can maybe hire somebody to help me out so that I can maybe produce more content. At the moment I can't do that, but you guys are helping me get a little bit closer to that. Your funding is making it possible for me to replace my laptop, which is getting pretty old. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. If you want to support the show, you can join for as little as $1 a month. You can go over to JapanKyo.com/Patreon. And they'll also cast a delicious spell on it. So they'll say like, moe moe kyu oishiku nare, or something like that, right? And
maids have magic now?
Yeah, they do, man. They're magical, non-cleaning maids. Welcome to Ichimon Japan. I'm Tony and
I'm Ryan.
And Ichimon means one question. Every episode we ask a question about Japan, and today's question is, what is yōshoku?
I really want to know this. It's been difficult in Japan the last 10 years not knowing.
It is a little misleading when you first hear about yōshoku. I think I got the wrong impression when I first learned this word, but short, let's give it a nice short explanation here. So yōshoku is this term that refers to Japanese style Western food.
The Japanese style is important.
Yes. So when you think Western food, because literally when you translate it, like the yo is the kanji used to refer to like the West. And then shoku is food. So it literally means like Western food or something like that. So you automatically think like, oh, this is going to be like whatever I get in the US, or maybe, I don't know, like Holland or the UK or something. I don't know, like somewhere generic West. But it's not quite that. It's its own like unique spin on the Western style cuisine.
Yeah, can I tell a little mini story first? It's 100% true.
Please.
So, a long time ago, when I was still living in Osaka, I was teaching at a junior high school, and junior high schools always have their kyushoku, which is like the school lunch you get for free.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was very good. And after I'd been there for like months, like let's say 6 months, I don't remember the exact span of time, one of the teachers came up to me like right after lunch. Was like, "Oh, so like which kyushoku do you like more, the Japanese style or the Western style?"
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly was like, "Oh, when do we have Western food?" And she's like, "Oh, today was Western food." I was like, "What?"
Do you remember what you had?
Not really. It was like a different kind of soup.
Okay, yeah. It might have been like a consomme or maybe like a cream stew.
I think it was a consomme.
Like yeah,
but
yeah.
My point, like, I had already been in Japan for like 3 or 4 years at this point.
Yeah.
And what they considered Western food, I believe to every Westerner on the planet, looks exactly like Japanese food.
Yeah. That's exactly. For me, it's like when I first heard yōshoku, I assumed, oh, this must be like what I would get, in the US or something like that. But it's not. It's its own kind of, you could even say it's kind of like a fusion of the kind of Japanese
it's like
style.
Western-inspired Japanese created dishes.
Yeah. Like a lot of Western ingredients, but kind
Honestly,
of arranged in a Japanese way.
I feel like it's not even Western so much as it's just like modern. Like any food they invented in the last 100 years just gets lumped in here.
Very good point. So, okay, so that brings it down to the question of what exactly is yōshoku, and the from what I can tell, from what I've read, it seems like generally people consider standard yōshoku to be what emerged in the Meiji period. So you're pretty much right there, where like we're talking around 150 years ago, or maybe even a little bit more. Maybe like we're talking right around the end of the Edo into the Meiji period. So we're talking second half of the 1800s for the most part, very early 1900s as well. So so we also have other Western-ish foods that are older than that. For example, tempura.
Tempura? Yeah.
Yep. So we have a few dishes that go back to the 16th century, back in the days of like Oda Nobunaga, and when there were like Portuguese missionaries and trading from the Dutch and even the British, and there was like trading going on, and foreigners were coming to Japan. So there's a few dishes that kind of have some roots back then. One of them is, like we just said, tempura. And
Which is not yōshoku.
which is not typically considered yōshoku. Exactly, people would normally not consider it yōshoku. I've never heard it called that, but it's still
they write it in kanji, man.
Yeah, they do. What is it? Heaven, and I don't remember the second one.
I think pura is just usually hiragana.
Oh, okay. Yeah, true. Yeah, but the first one is heaven. So, anyway, yeah. So the Portuguese, the story is that this is the widely accepted story. That the Portuguese, kind of traders or the sailors, whatever, they brought over a style of cooking like the fish and maybe vegetables like that, like frying it, and so that got adapted into what we know now as tempura. So those
there are other ones too. I wish I could remember its name, but I remember at the same junior high, the kids had to write their favorite food, and most of them just picked like okonomiyaki and takoyaki because it was Osaka.
Mm-hmm.
But one picked a dish I'd never heard of, and I looked it up online, and it was some like local little town only thing in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
But the history was it actually originated in Holland, I think.
Oh.
It just somehow got there and then had been made there for like 300 years.
Yeah. I mean, there's little funny quirks like that. Yeah. And like I said, there was influence from the Dutch, and back, when before Japan entered the Edo period, there was a lot more trading going on, and then Edo period, they kind of shut down most of that for 2.5 centuries. So those are in this weird gray zone where they're kind of considered like Japanese food, but also there's another term that's called Namban ryori, and like Namban is like the southern barbarians. Ryori is cuisine. So this refers to, I guess, like the Portuguese and the Spanish and the people that came from the southern islands like Macau and probably other islands down there, because the Portuguese and the Spanish were trading in those areas. And so some dishes that kind of have those ties back to those days, they get clumped into this Namban ryori category, but I'm not going to go too deep into that. We're mainly focusing on the more modern thing, like we said, which really emerges around the Meiji period, which is the yōshoku. So as we were saying, during the Edo period, Japan was, for the most part, kind of closed off, and they were doing their own thing. But then when we get into the Meiji period, they opened up and they were trying to, really learn from the West and implement a lot of the ways of doing things in the West. And one of the things that they did was try to adapt like the food and bring in more meat eating and different ingredients, and starting to grow more of certain ingredients that were not that common until then. And so things like that, like, for example, the government saying that one of the reasons why Westerners are so big is because they eat a lot of meat. And so they would encourage meat eating. So see our episode on meat eating and intestines for more information.
Also, we had the Is Rabbit Meat one, didn't we?
Yeah, that's the meat eating one. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Are rabbit birds or something like that? I can't remember what exactly it was.
Honestly,
but
just for me personally, not calling fish meat is still weird.
Exactly. So for more info on that, the whole history of meat, quote unquote, bans, which were very not quite bans, but go listen to that episode. And then also meat related thing, go listen to the intestines episode. But anyway, the government kind of latched onto this and really encouraged eating meat. And so people started to learn how to use like knives and forks, and there's all kinds of funny stories about how people were not used to using knives and forks, and they would cut too strong, and so then the meat would go flying, and they'd get their clothes dirty because they just were using too much pressure on their utensils and stuff. So but around this time we start to get like these adaptations, I guess you would say, of these Western style cuisines. And so they start to, certain cooks or chefs, whatever, they there's various reasons. One, sometimes some ingredients weren't as readily available in Japan, but also they were just trying to kind of make it more palatable to the Japanese taste, I guess you would say, so they made certain changes. And there's a ton of dishes that really rose to popularity during this time, and we will talk about some of them. But I do want to first talk about what is considered, according to one article I read, the first yōshoku restaurant. And I thought it was an interesting story. It dates back to 1863. And
I hope its name was just Yoshoku.
It's not. It was Rinryōte, which is good forest restaurant. Good
forest
woods
restaurant.
Yeah, good woods. Like Rin was Hayashi, and then Ryo was good. And then te is like the suffix for a lot of restaurants. A lot of restaurants just use te. It can mean pavilion, but a lot of restaurants just use it to mean, I guess, like restaurant. So it's this place started by this guy. I think his name was from the forest. Well, I don't know if he was from the forest. No, his last name was Kusano. Kusano. So Kusa does mean grass, so there's something there. But and I think his first name was Jokichi, if I remember correctly. Might be wrong on that. But anyway, so he worked as a dishwasher in Dejima in Nagasaki. And Dejima was this like it's like an artificial island where they would do like they had the Dutch traders based there. And so he worked for this Dutch company, and he was doing the dishes, but also learning how to cook. And then I guess he went independent and started his own little shop, again called Rinryote. And it was a tiny, tiny shop. It was like 6 tatami big.
Wow! So it's like one party.
Yeah. So, but 6 tatami big. So that is, I'm not even sure how much that is in feet, but like 10 feet by like 6 feet or something like that. It's a really rough guess, but the classic.
It depends on how they're arranged. It could just be 1 tatami wide and 6 long. It's like a little hallway.
Oh, that is true. Yeah. And also, I'm not clear if that included the size for the kitchen or if that was the dining space. So
if that's the kitchen, it's literally like a chair.
Yeah. So according to this article, they only sat 6 people. And you had to reserve to get a seat, but you had to reserve the day before. Now, the thing is that back in those days, there was no internet. They didn't have phones. They didn't even have telegrams. And the mail was not really, I guess, a reliable thing. So you had to go in person to make the reservation the day before in order to get a seat to eat there. And I don't know exactly what was being served, but probably something similar to some of the dishes that are called yōshoku today. But according to the article, it was frequented by kind of government officials, or maybe if like a foreigner was visiting, they would take them there. So it was kind of like an expensive place. By today's standards, you would say that a dish or a meal was about Ichimon Sanzen, which is like 13,000 yen, so like 120 $130, something like that.
That's high class restaurant prices. It's not insane.
It's not exactly. Yeah. It's not like super top of the line, but it is.
You don't need to be like nobility or something to have that.
Yeah. Like I saw another article that mentioned how some yōshoku places at the beginning yōshoku was more of a high classy kind of thing. So maybe like the kind of aristocratic people and the emperor and that kind of stuff, they would maybe go to more of these kind of places, the rich people. And I saw one report that a meal there might be more like $200 something. So that's, I guess the super fancy kind of place. But anyway, this place in Nagasaki, supposedly the first one, was more around like the $130 region, which, expensive, but not the top of the expensive restaurant hierarchy. But for whatever reason, I don't know what happened. It seems like it closed like maybe 3 or 4 years afterwards. It changed names twice, and then I think it closed in like 1867. Now, from what I can tell, the building was either reconstructed or just, I'm not sure if they took pieces of the original building and moved it, or they maybe had some sort of reference and rebuilt it, but they have what seems to be a replica in this place called Glover Garden in Nagasaki, which I guess is some kind of big like botanical garden kind of place, and they have probably some old Europeanish buildings. Never
it's
been
a tiny
there
little room that can only seat 6 people, and you have to go in person
so.
the day before.
I guess so. Yeah. I hope they still keep that rule. It's like you got to go the day before in person to get a reservation to get in. But I don't know if they it's just like I don't know what they do in that room nowadays. I don't know if they actually do something with it. But
it would be great if it's like inside a place that requires admission too, so you have to like pay twice just to make
I think it is. Well, again, I don't know if they charge you to get into that building, but I presume that they would charge you to get into the garden. It's probably, one of those attractions. But yeah, that was supposedly the first one. But, like I said, once we get into the Meiji period, then you start to see more and more and more, and starts to spread more and more and more. But we'll leave the first half at that. And in the second half, we're going to talk about some specific dishes. So if you're wondering, all right, well, give me some examples. Well, we're going to do that in the second half. So we'll be right back. Hey guys, quick commercial break. If you haven't already, make sure to follow or subscribe on your podcast platform. That is incredibly important. It helps boost the rankings on, I believe, most podcast platforms, but especially Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy the show, help me so that more people can find it and you don't miss out on future episodes. Also, a rating and a review would be greatly, greatly appreciated. I've gotten positive feedback from a couple people on Twitter. Thank you. I really, really appreciate that. Also, if you haven't listened to Japan Station, the latest episode is with David Nakayama. David Nakayama is an incredibly talented artist. He does covers for Marvel Comics, and he is also one of the individuals, along with Chris Claremont, who relaunched Big Hero 6 in 2008. So Big Hero 6 is a comic book series, an original comic series that Marvel published, and then that eventually got turned into the movie that everybody knows these days. But David relaunched it in 2008 with Chris Claremont, and a lot of the things that David created for that or did for that would end up inspiring or influencing the eventual movie. So we talk about that and anime and drawing comics and things like that. So go check that out. That's episode 90 of Japan Station. And just a quick heads up, I'm going to be traveling in June of 2022. I'm going to be heading to Finland. So I'm going to be traveling just for fun. I haven't done that since before the pandemic, and I'm really, really, really excited to just go somewhere new. Unfortunately, I still can't go to Japan because Japan hasn't opened its borders. So I decided I'm just going to go somewhere else. So I'm going to go check out Finland. And I'm going to be there for a week in the beginning of June. So that will mess up the schedule for June. I may not be able to release an Ichimon Japan episode on the 7th because I'll be busy, going around Finland. So I will do my best to release an episode on the 21st instead, but I can't promise anything. And one last quick thing before we get into the rest of the show. Japan Station and Ichimon Japan are on track to get 100,000 total downloads within the next few months. I am very close to that, and at the current pace, it seems like it's going to happen within the year, perhaps quite a bit before the end of the year. So thank you guys in advance. Thank you. Yeah, that would not be possible without you, the person listening to this right now. So I truly, truly appreciate that. I'm really looking forward to that milestone. But anyway, enough of me. Let's get back into the show. All right, so let's talk about some of these specific dishes, and I will mention one thing before we get into this list that I came up with. We were saying, Western style food and this and that. That's not to mean that we were kind of being derogatory or anything, because I'm pretty sure I think I like every single dish on this list a lot.
I like all but one, I think, which I will say my reason, and it is a good reason.
I know which way. Yeah.
Some of my favorite Japanese foods are yōshoku, so they're very good. I recommend them.
Yes. I mean, a lot of this has like meat and cheese and potatoes and ketchup and some stuff that is pretty widely liked. So you can't go wrong with this stuff if unless I mean, if you're vegetarian, maybe it's not for you, but for the most part, I think that it's all pretty good stuff. So let's go down the list.
Hey, vegetarians can still have rice.
True. Yeah. Now, if you're vegan, then but if you're vegetarian, you can still have.
Korokke could still be open depending on how it's made.
Yeah, depending on the oil that's used.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go in order here. So first we have kare rice.
We started with the best. This is the best yōshoku.
Curry rice, right? Now,
yes.
Why curry is from India, right? Like, why is curry rice considered Western style? Well, the story goes that this is actually based on the British take on curry, which of course was their own take on the original Indian curry, right? And they, from what I read, the British came up with the powder, or I assume what the English that I read meant was the roux, which is what it's called in Japanese, which is kind of like the curry base that you melt down into the Japanese style curry sauce. So I assume that's what they were referring to. But basically, the British seem to have brought it over through trade, maybe through the Navy and different things. And then Japan adapted that and they took it over and they made it their own thing. And curry is huge. It's one of the most like common kind of home style dishes, but also there's plenty of restaurants that have curry dishes as well.
Yes. I honestly do think this is probably the best yōshoku. It's not the best Japanese food because I freaking love it.
Mm-hmm.
But I will warn you, in general, Japanese style curry is not very spicy, if at all.
Yeah, not at all.
But sometimes they'll ask you if you want like spicy or sweet or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So you get in the habit of always picking spicy, but like 1 out of 50 times it's legitimately spicy. True. And then you might accidentally ruin your meal by picking a hot one.
Yeah. There are. I totally agree. Most of the time it's not spicy, but every once in a while there are these restaurants that they actually have different levels. Like they'll actually tell you like pick a number and you can get pretty high on the spicy scale, and it's still Japanese style curry, but it's actually like really spicy. So you do.
Yeah, my friend and I went to one that was like between 1 and 15. And we had the thinking that like, it's never hot. So I guess I'll do 10 and he did like 12.
Mm-hmm.
We did not enjoy that meal.
Yeah, be careful.
I think like baseline curry was 1, and then 2 was already like the spicy stuff, and then we went for this like horrible melt through your plate level stuff.
Yeah. And of course, there's also different little takes on curry. There's of course curry udon.
Yeah.
Which is great. I love it. Curry flavored soup broth udon.
Another thing I want to point out is like restaurant style and like home cooking style is actually pretty different, because the home cook style is kind of similar to like a beef stew.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a whole bunch of extra ingredients mixed in. It's usually much less spicy from my experience.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
But both are very good.
Of course, the classic, side dish or meat or protein is the katsu, the pork cutlet or whatever, deep fried. You get katsu kare, that is super, super popular. And
there's sausage, there's ebi fry.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything.
Korokke.
Karage. Korokke.
Yeah. And there's also like the curry breads, like, you get the curry inside filled in the bread. Yeah, curry is super popular.
There's kareman.
Kareman, yeah. Also a character in Anpanman. So
you can eat him.
Yes, you can. Yeah, and then he'll ooze out curry from his head. So that's curry, super popular. I mean, if you have not had it, what are you waiting for? You got to have some Japanese style curry, and of course there is Indian style curry as well. But they're both good.
I will put a plug out here. One of the few things Ishikawa, where I live now, is famous for is we have a curry chain local to here called Go Go Kare.
Oh, I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, their logo is like a gorilla.
Yeah.
And they have chains outside of Ishikawa, but they have like a map in the one that I go to that there's like 100 pins in Ishikawa, then there's like 1 or 2 in Tokyo and 1 or 2 in Osaka.
Yeah, I've probably been to the one in Osaka. Oh.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I went for like a training thing once in Shizuoka, and we had the weekend free. It was like from Wednesday to Tuesday, and some of my friends were like, "Oh, we found this really great curry place, guys. You have to go." And then it turned out to be Go Go Kare, and I was like, "Oh." That's like my local curry shop.
Wow. It's not common outside of there.
It's
all right.
not, and it is very good. And you get enormous portions.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to the next one. Another very popular one. Omuraisu.
I'm going to say it's good, but it's a significant step down from kare rice.
Yeah, you know what? Like, I really do like it, but this is the kind of thing that I typically would have at home. I would rarely eat this at a restaurant. There's one that I like, which is pomonoki, and the reason why I like them is because one, the portions can get quite big, so I enjoy that. But also, they come with like little like extras, right? So you might have like I don't know, like ebi fry and omurice. So it's a combination kind of thing. So that makes it extra fun. And they have different creative kinds of omurice. But for a standard omurice, which is basically just like omelet on top of like butter fried rice, and we're not talking like Chinese fried rice, we're talking like pan fried, like sauteed-ish kind of rice in butter
Omelet
or ketchup.
on top of, I usually see the rice inside of it.
Oh, true. Yeah. It is kind of rolled up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
See,
that's true.
We didn't clearly state at the beginning. This is an omelet with rice inside.
Yeah. And yeah, so anyway, it's the kind of thing that I typically would have at home more than I would have at a restaurant. But
I don't think I've ever made this. I usually have it when it like comes in some kind of bento. And I'll enjoy it, but I've never like gone out of my way to order it. It's just it's so.
Yeah,
it has the reputation for being kind of like children's food, and
yeah, definitely.
I get that. It's really simple.
It also has another association, at least for me and probably some people that have lived through this experience. But if you go to a maid cafe, you're almost certainly going to see omurice on the menu.
You had to live through a maid cafe?
Yeah, well, okay, so I made it out alive.
They're very dangerous.
Yeah, so I've been to 2 maid cafes in my life. The first one was a peculiar experience in that it was really cafe-ish. Like it was like a very like small, kind of dimly lit, and not in a shady way, but in a kind of like fashionable cafe-ish, like old-fashioned British cafe-ish or something like that way. And there was only like
you can tell it's high class by how dark it is.
Yeah. And there was like one maid, I think, and it was not quite the classic maid experience that you would normally see in Akihabara, even though it was in Akihabara. So it was fine. It was just like going to like a normal cafe, and the maid happened to be the waitress. But then when another friend went to Japan, we went to like a more classic, like, you know, the classic kind of maid cafe. And that was the one where the maids dance and everything. And I have to say that experience felt kind of weird and kind of creepy. And I don't know, the walls were kind of dirty. So there's something weird about it. I don't know.
Is this a maid's primary job to clean? Like, how can you have a dirty maid?
Those maids don't like, clean.
I know, but like the fantasy of it, they're just like ruined at step 1.
Yeah. It's like, come on, just wipe down the walls at least. But anyway, I think the first time I might have had Hamburg, and the second time I had an omurice. Now,
okay.
Really, the
I
ultimate
have never
point,
been to a maid cafe, just for the record.
I mean, it's not. I don't know.
I have a friend who I know is going to drag me to one at some point in my life.
Yeah.
So I know it's coming.
I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with checking it out and having the experience, but having been to both of these ones that I've been to, I'm in absolutely no rush to ever go back to one again. No, but really, the ultimate point here is that a lot of times you do see omurice on these maid cafes, and one of the things that these maids do is they'll draw a little picture of like a cat or a heart or something cute on top of your omelet with ketchup, and they'll also cast a delicious spell on it. So they'll say like "moe moe kyu oishiku nare" or something like that, right? And
maids have magic now.
Yeah, they do, man. They're magical, non-cleaning maids. And so they, you know, it's this whole spiel, and they make you like move your hands and chant along with them, and, you know, make it kind of a fun experience. And I have to say, you're paying for the experience. You're not paying for a high quality omurice for the most part. You can get a much better tasting, bigger portion at a proper restaurant. But again, you're paying for the experience with the maid. So really, the omurice is
uncomfortable experience of the maid.
I mean, for me a little bit, but maybe for somebody else it's not. No judgment here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So that is honestly, I mean, I think it's a purely business kind of thing. We all know the customers aren't exactly typically going for the food. So they just serve rather simple food so that doesn't get in the way of the experience of the maids and all that. And I mean, to be even more completely honest here, it's probably a pretty high profit margin on those omurice. It's just eggs and rice. So, hey, it all works out for the business. So yeah, omurice. Kids love it. It is pretty common. You eat it at home,
Maid
but you also eat
cafes,
it.
kids love
And
them.
well, I was going to get to the maid cafes too, but kids typically, I don't think they might not even allow kids in the maid cafe. But yeah, that is omurice, the most Western style dish ever.
Oh, and to point out, despite it being super Western style, as far as we can tell, it's just completely invented in Japan.
Yeah. Yes.
Like
yes,
not
yes.
inspired by British fried rice or curry rice or anything. Just Japan just made it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess they were inspired by the omelet, and then they threw in their own rice and ketchup and all that. So I don't know. It's very loose with this quote unquote Western style. But next one, korokke.
Yes, to move on, korokke, one of the best ones again.
Absolutely wonderful. I don't know if there's such a thing as too many korokke.
I hate that you said that because I've had bad korokke.
Oh well, I didn't say bad korokke. I said too many korokke. Now,
okay, yeah.
Well, if it's a bad korokke, then one korokke is too many.
Yes. I know we have one other curry. There's like two curry restaurants that are famous where I live. One is the Gogo one, which is great, and the other one I'm not going to name because it feels mean to beat up on them. Their curry is fine. I don't like them because their korokke is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
It's only cheese, because normally korokke is like a fried thing with mainly potato plus something. It could be beef, it could be vegetables, but like its main thing is potato. The bad one, it's just cheese, which I know sounds good, but they use a really crappy cheese, and it's not even like melty. It's just like oddly chewy.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not good at all.
Doesn't sound appetizing because you like one of the best things about korokke is when you get it like just fried and it's almost like that takoyaki thing where you know if you bite into it it's gonna burn your mouth but you can't stop yourself from biting into it.
And it's either got sauce on it or it like came with curry rice, so you have some like curry sauce on it or something like. Oh, it's so good.
So like you said, korokke is basically potato is the base, and then inside it usually has meat or some kind of vegetable or some kind of like kani cream, like crab cream or something.
There's lots of variations, but potato plus X.
Potato deep fried, nice and crispy. You can get it at supermarkets. They'll sell them cheap. They also have them like in food stalls.
Konbini have them at like the little checkout food stuff.
Yeah. And in bento or in restaurants, like you were saying, like it'll come with your curry, or it might come with some. A lot of times you might get like a bento that's like a mix. They call it a mix fry. I think, right? And
like
that might
various
have
fried things.
Various fried things, yeah. And
it's usually like a side dish. This is the first one that's not like a meal you would order. It would be something that comes with your meal.
Yes. So I was looking at the history of this, and it seems that this is kind of the Japanese take on the French croquette. That's where the korokke comes from, croquette. But it's different. It's totally different. And there's various reasons for this. None of it is like this is definitely true and 100% the thing. But for example, I read a couple things. Dairy products were hard to find, so the French croquette used more kind of sauces and stuff like that. So that's one factor, perhaps. Another thing is that at the time in the Meiji period, they were developing agriculture and various things in Hokkaido. And potatoes were a big thing in Hokkaido. So I guess potatoes were more abundant. So maybe that's another factor that played into this. And then another thing is that in the 1920s to 30s, there was a kind of economic depression going on in Japan. And korokke was very cheap, very easy to make. You could have a bunch of them. Again, it's very cheap. Butcher shops were selling them. And so it was very easy to get, very easy to eat. And so maybe that also helped promote the kind of widespread consumption of korokke.
Also, they just taste really good. That probably helps too.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, deep fry some potato. Hell yeah. Any day of the week, pretty much anything is good. So yeah, korokke. And oh, by the way, if you want to learn how people in World War II, at least some of them said it in kanji, go back and listen to our episode where we were talking about the Japanese writing system and funny ways of saying things in kanji. I won't.
This is
I
the
won't say
really long ones, right?
Yeah, it was. Oh, yeah, curry too as well. There was a really long one too. So go back and listen to that episode, probably like 3 or 4 episodes ago. Anyway, all right. So let's talk about the next one.
Hamburg.
Hamburg. All right, Ryan. So until you went to Japan, had you had many Hamburgs?
Nope, never.
Same here. Same here.
But I've been asked by Japanese people a whole bunch, like, how are American Hamburgs? To which I just say, I don't know. I don't think they exist.
So my understanding is that Hamburg is, well, perhaps the proper name is Hamburg steak. But yeah, that's not commonly, as far as I know. I mean, I didn't grow up eating Hamburg steaks. I mean, basically what these quote unquote Hamburg steaks are like the hamburger patty without anything. But it's not exactly the same.
It's not a hamburger patty though. It's ground beef like that, but the shape is different. It's more of an oval shape. They don't literally just take a hamburger patty. It tends to be thicker and it tends to be covered in like a sauce.
And it tends to be softer too.
Yes, it's very soft.
And it's mixed in with like vegetables or something. Like it's not pure like ground beef in the shape of a patty.
They use like onions inside or something.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's on the whole, there are some exceptions. Like I've had some very meaty Hamburg steaks, like at this one place called Big Boy, which is have you had that?
I wanted to get to that too. So
have you had Big Boy?
Bob's Big Boy is an American hamburger restaurant that exists in Japan and does not sell hamburgers.
Is it actually Bob's Big Boy?
I think it is. Okay.
I wasn't sure about that, but I know it's called Big Boy. There was one by where I lived in Kobe.
They have the same logo.
Okay. Well, then hopefully it's all above board and they didn't just steal it. But they've been in business for a long time, so I would figure if there was copyright issues, they would have been in trouble.
I think their name now is just Big Boy in America too. I'm looking at Wikipedia now.
Oh, okay. So yeah, Big Boy is one of these. Their big thing is Hamburg steaks. They're a typical like quote unquote famiresu, which is they serve different types of, a lot of yōshoku in general, but mainly they're known for the Hamburg steaks, and those Hamburgs tend to be much beefier, like a little bit more like a hamburger patty that we would have for a proper hamburger in the West. I do like those. I do enjoy those quite a bit. But anyway, like we said, it's something akin to a Hamburg patty, but not quite exactly the same. And it's just served typically with some sauce on top, side of vegetables. You might have some bread, but sometimes I think usually rice. And I agree, it's fine. Like this isn't one of my favorite yōshoku. I do like it.
Like a sauce inside too, like you get like a little nugget of something in the meat.
Yeah. I like the little creative extra layer. But yeah, like it's fine. I like it, but it's not one of the top ones in my list. So, but very, very common. This is also very common at home. Moms will make it for the house or the dad or whatever, and the kids tend to really enjoy it. All right, so let's do the next one, and that is Hayashi Rice.
This one sucks. Don't ever eat it.
This is the one that Ryan doesn't like, right?
So I'll be honest. The taste of Hayashi Rice is so-so. Mm-hmm. The reason I hate it is because it looks identical to curry rice. So whenever you get it, you're like, oh, I'm about to have some curry rice, and that's like the best thing in Japan. And then you bite it, and you're like, oh, never mind.
Yeah, I get it. Like for me, between curry rice and Hayashi rice, I will pick curry rice 9 times out of 10.
Really? I would do 11 times out of 10.
Every once in a while,
that implies once when I get the Hayashi rice, I just throw it away.
It's like, look, please, here, it's for free. I'll just give it to you. Can you just eat it? It's like, no, just give me the curry rice.
But it doesn't taste bad. Again, when I worked at that place where we had like the free school lunch, sometimes it was curry rice and sometimes it was Hayashi rice, and they look the same. And it would come out, and I'd be like, "Oh, cool! Today's curry rice," and then take like one spoonful and just be like, "Oh,
I get
never
that.
mind."
I get that. Yeah. So, like I said, I mean, every once in a while, I do enjoy a dish of Hayashi rice. I have ordered it once or twice in a restaurant. But like I said, 9 times out of 10, I much prefer curry. Just an explanation here in case somebody here out there listening doesn't know what Hayashi rice is.
It's fake curry rice.
It's fake curry rice. Okay. So Hayashi Rice fans, please don't hate mail us. So
there's no Hayashi Rice fans.
Oh man, you're getting them riled up. All right. So
in fairness, it is a reasonable dish. It's not great, but it is okay. My main complaint is that I always think it's curry rice, and I'm disappointed.
Yeah. So again, it looks like curry rice because basically you got your rice and then you got vegetables and you got a sauce on top. So it looks, and the sauce, the color is very similar. But
it's a little bit more brownish, I guess, or
it is
a little bit orangish.
Yeah. But in the case of Hayashi rice, it tends to be beef. There's vegetables usually in it, and the sauce tends to be some kind of demi-glace-ish sauce. Demi-glaze? I think it's demi-glaze. I'm not sure.
No idea.
Yeah, I believe that's what it is. Comes from French, but I love eating, but I'm not that good at names. Demi-gorgon sauce, yes. So again, it's good, but if I had the choice, I'd probably choose something else. Now, as for the name Hayashi Rice, this is one of these things that is not clear. There's, when you look it up, it says there's various theories. You would think that a dish named Hayashi, like a name that you often see in Japan, a last name, must be invented by somebody named Hayashi. But the most common origin story for this is that actually Hayashi comes from the English word hashed beef, and that this morphed into Hayashi. So hash beef, Hayashi, right? Maybe I see how that could happen, but there's no guarantee. I believe it's also written in katakana normally, not in the kanji that you would see in a person's last name. So maybe that's correct. Yeah, so maybe that's further evidence for this. But according to something Ryan saw, it seems like it might have originated. Was it in Hyogo?
I believe yes.
Yeah.
I think I closed the page now, but I think that's where it said.
Yeah. So, but again, these histories are sometimes very sketchy and people claim things. So it's really hard to say, but it's, again, super common dish. It's good, but maybe might not be your favorite. If it is, totally fine, but Ryan won't be friends with you.
No, everyone has different favorites. Like I said, whenever I ask my students their favorite foods, they usually pick like okonomiyaki, takoyaki, karage. But there's always someone who just says like white rice. I'm like, oh, you must be happy every day.
I know. I mean, that's so just like every day is a good day, right?
Yeah.
All right. There's plenty more yōshoku dishes, but we can't break down the whole thing and tell you about every single little one. But there is one more that I want to bring up, and it is a very, 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 very popular one, very widely eaten one, both in Japan and in the US and other places, and that is tonkatsu. So, do you like tonkatsu, Ryan?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Good stuff. So, tonkatsu, of course, I think probably anybody listening to this is familiar with tonkatsu, but just in case, the ton refers to pig, pork, and katsu comes from katsuretsu, which comes from the French of kotole or something like that, I think. But of course, in English, you would say cutlet. So literally pork cutlet. However, it's deep fried strips. They're kind of like these strip-shaped cuts of pork. They're deep fried in panko, which is breadcrumbs. And it's a delicious, delicious dish if you enjoy pork.
It is very good.
And it tends to be served on top of shredded cabbage. And you get rice and usually soup. And at some restaurants in Japan, actually, there's at least 2 chains that I can think of. They give you like all you can eat cabbage and all you can eat rice and all you can eat soup as well.
I've seen all you can eat rice. I don't think I've seen the cabbage very much before.
Yeah. I've been to, what is it? Katsukura, I think, is one of the chains.
Okay.
And there's another one that I've been to that I can't remember the name of, but yeah, they just go around and they'll give you a whole heap of cabbage if you want it, and you can put the sauce on top, and they have like this, various dressings, and it's quite good. So, if you feel like eating a lot, you can fill up on cabbage, rice, and soup, and some of the pork. Unfortunately, the pork is not all you can eat, but another fun thing about these tonkatsu restaurants is you get the little bowl, like these little I guess it's like a little bowl, and you get it's like a mortar and pestle, right? So you grind down the sesame seed, and then you put the sauce on top, and you mix it up, and then that's where you dip your tonkatsu, right? So you grind it up yourself, the sesame, to give it that extra little sesame flavor, and the sauce typically used is like I think it's like a Worcestershire sauce, and it's quite good.
Mm.
So
I enjoy it very much.
Yes. The origins seem to go back to this restaurant called Rengate, which was in Ginza, and originally they called it pork katsu, and so I guess at some point, I think it was a place in Ueno. Or again, the history here is kind of dicey, so maybe it's
true. But it was in Ginza and Ueno?
No. So originally, the story goes that this one article says it was Rengate in Ginza. They started serving pork katsu, but then it was another place in Ueno that started calling it tonkatsu. And then from there, it started spreading. And this was all in I think the late 1800s, early 1900s, and it just spread from there. Now, something really interesting here that I saw that I had never heard of and I didn't know of at all, but maybe if you have some friends that are from Tokyo, you might be able to ask them and see if this is a thing still. But according to this article that I was reading, a Japanese article, edoko, which are people that come from Tokyo, probably like multi-generational, family in Tokyo, they have a particular way of eating tonkatsu. And
they don't use hashi or fork or anything. They just suck it up like Kirby.
No, it's like the dunking for apples, like in Halloween.
Yeah.
Like you just popping for apples. That's what it's called. Yeah, you just stick your head in the sauce and you try to eat it. But so according to this article, right, what you do is you take the deep fried kind of panko skin off. You put the sauce on the skin on top on the pork katsu. Then you take the skin off. Then you eat the meat. Then you put the panko in the rice. You mix it up, and then you eat that as what's called katsuhan. So it's the panko mixed with the rice and the sauce. I've never heard of anybody doing this, but
me neither. That sounds odd.
It does sound odd because for me, I enjoy the crisp that you get when you bite into the meat, and you get the mixture of the sauce and the panko and the meat all together. And I mean, I like sauce in my rice too, but it seems
me too, but
I don't know, that doesn't seem appealing to me. So I don't know if that's something that people still do. Maybe like the older generation used to do that. I have no idea, but maybe if you have some friends in Tokyo, you can ask them, and they might tell you like, oh yeah, my grandma used to do that. I have no idea. But of course, tonkatsu is another one of these super popular ones. Like we said, there you see it with curry, right? Where you start to get these different combinations. So like we said earlier, you get katsu kare, which is tonkatsu with curry. Delicious. Absolutely wonderful.
The best way to have tonkatsu.
Hell yeah. And I don't know if it's the best, but it's certainly at least a tie with original tonkatsu for me. Then we also have
original tonkatsu plus curry.
I love it, so I'm not even going to say anything else. I absolutely love it. So you also have katsudon. Now, the katsudon, you have people that don't like katsudon. Now, why? That's because for some people say that katsu should be crispy. And what happens when you put it in katsudon and you mix it with eggs and vegetables and kind of like a sauce kind of thing, and you mix it all with the rice, which is like this big rice bowl, right? Katsudon. The panko, the exterior, that crispy exterior gets soggy. So some people don't like that.
I never rationalized it, but I did think that was one of the less good katsus, and maybe that's why.
I would agree. I do like katsudon, and every once in a while I do actually get it. But if given the choice between a proper just normal tonkatsu and katsudon, most of the time I would go with the just standard tonkatsu because I like the crispiness. I totally see the perspective on the soggy katsu. So yeah, but super popular as well. Katsudon, people do enjoy it. We also have katsu sando, which of course katsu sandwiches, right? Good stuff as well. I like it. And then there's all kinds of other katsus as well. There's gyukatsu, which is beef katsu. There's chicken katsu. There's ebi katsu, shrimp katsu. There's also hamu katsu, which is a pretty old-fashioned style of katsu. I think this was popular in like the Showa era. You rarely see it on menus these days, but it's basically ham fried in this katsu style. And there's probably other katsus that I can't think of at the moment.
I get that
but
pretty often recently with my current bento delivery service at work.
the
Often as in
hamukatsu.
like once every 2 weeks or so.
Okay. I mean, it
It's
depends,
kind of
but
fun because we get so many like oval shaped fried things. It's always a mystery what's going to be inside, and it's always good.
Yeah. I mean,
Honestly, if you don't order it, like even koroke could look the same.
Yeah. Once it's all fried, it's like, I think this might be a carrot, but I'm not sure. And then you eat it, it's like, oh no, that was something else.
I don't think I've ever mistaken it for a carrot.
Well, I'm just giving a random thing here. I couldn't think of a better example. Yeah. But yeah, there's tons of different katsus, and you get it. I mean, come on, fried food. Everybody loves fried food, right? So, of course, yeah, it's going to be one of the most popular ones. And one of the quirky things here is that tonkatsu is widely considered to be yōshoku. However, it's in one of these gray areas in that it's eaten with chopsticks rather than knives and forks. A lot of yōshoku tends to be eaten with a knife or a fork, spoon, so Western utensils. But katsus are typically eaten with chopsticks. And a lot of these katsu restaurants tend to have a more Japanese decor rather than the standard yōshoku, which tend to go for a more European-ish decor. So kind of an interesting quirk there.
I never really thought of it like the spoon and fork meaning yōshoku, because it always felt like a practicality thing. Like curry rice is usually with a spoon, but that's because the sauce makes the rice not stick together.
Yeah. Well, the nature of the food as well, right? So
I personally eat omurice with chopsticks, though. Is that irregular?
I'm pretty. I know you always get a spoon with omurice. I don't remember if I've seen people normally eat it with chopsticks though. So, I mean, it also depends on the size of the omurice. Like if it's a little thing that you get in a bento, maybe. But if it's like one of the big dishes that I'm thinking of, typically would be a spoon.
I think there's lots of things where they just give you both and you just use whatever you want to use.
Yeah. So, but yeah, for the most part, like for example, doria is another one, which is kind of like a cheesy rice, kind of is inspired by kind of Italianish, but it again original creation in Japan. But it's like a rice and cheesy, saucy kind of thing. So of course, it's just difficult to eat with the chopsticks. So you're gonna eat with the spoon. It's a practicality thing as well as an aesthetic thing. But katsu, they cut it up into strips, so it's just very easy to. It's kind of, well, I don't know if it's easier because you could just stab it with a fork, but it's very easy to eat with chopsticks because it's all cut up into strips. So yeah, that's yōshoku. Would you be able to say that you have a favorite of some of the ones that we talked about? Or is it curry?
Probably curry rice, as I've been saying repeatedly.
Yeah. Okay, I thought so. Yeah.
Well, it depends on how open we're getting, because like ebi fry is also something I absolutely love.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, like that's the thing though. Like we said with korokke, ebi fry too. Like it's typically a thing that you would eat alongside with something else.
Yeah, so like ebi fry kare is just the way to go.
Yeah, ebi fry katsu kare. You do get that. You do. I have had that. Yeah, they just throw all the fried stuff into the curry. I mean, I think that's
the gogo kare I mentioned. You get ebi fry, you get katsu, you get tamago, and you get sausage.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to compete with curry because you can throw anything in there and it's good. And because it tends to be like when you go to a restaurant, like the katsu is like freshly fried and they just put it on top, so you still get the crispy of the katsu, but you can dip it in the curry. You can get that extra flavor as well. So yeah, it's quite good.
I'm very hungry now.
Yep. So I think it's time to finish up. Anything you want to add, or are you just ready to go eat?
I'm going to go eat.
All right, me too. All right, guys. So go check out some Yōshoku if you can. I highly recommend it. And until then, see you next time.
See you next time.